begin, let's acknowledge that Yahweh values creation. It's plain to see. God delights in all that God creates. God goes around. This is good. Oh, this is delightful. Very good. God's all over the map declaring that this created order, oh, it's marvelous. The Leviathan rising up out of the watery depths, the spider crawling up the wall in your house, the cactus, the mulberry. Good. God delights in them. It's part of the creation. Long before environmentalists came along to talk about clean water, God was a tree hugger. From the white wonder of the Alaskan landscape to the depths of the Grand Canyon, God values what God made. And the pinnacle, because it rises to this moment, this pinnacle moment. What's the pinnacle of creation? Human beings! God says, oh, these are very good. Now, you who are very good, you get to be entrusted with all of it, like a shepherd who watches over sheep, like a parent saying to the child, take care of the backyard. God says to the pinnacle of God's creation, to human beings, here, I'm entrusting the care of this to you. Well, any fool could see that humanity doesn't care as much about creation as God does. We do not value the way Yahweh values. Fact is, violence violates God's value system, and humanity does not treat other earthlings as those of value. Just doesn't. We have this story that Patty read for us. Here's old King Herod. He's got the rumor, and it's spinning around in his head, that there's this new king in town, only the king's a little one, a toddler. And so Herod, he sends, what's he do? He sends his stormtroopers down to Bethlehem to wipe out every male kiddo who's 2 years or younger. Herod, he's just the most recent person in that whole sordid history. You step further back, Herod's just like old Pharaoh. Pharaoh said the Israelites are too many of them. What we're going to do is throw them in the Nile. Kill them off. And if we think that that sordid story is over, just visit Syria. Do you know that of all those barrel bombs and poisons and bullets, 25% of the victims were kids? Still going on. And Mary and Joseph, they hear from God a warning, and they head down to Egypt to protect the baby, the little one, Jesus. Just like some parents in Syria got sort of tuned into how the Civil War was going to impact their neighborhoods. They packed up their kids. They became refugees, just like Mary and Joseph. Only, who wants a Syrian refugee? So, neighboring states, they got these camps. They're not allowed out of the camps. Just like, some of us are old enough to remember 1937, 38. These ships came to the U.S. of A, chock full of Jewish refugees from Europe. What'd we do? Can't find them here. Take them back. Our violent systems violate God's value system. And it isn't just the way we treat human beings. Stretch it out. Your imagination, stretch it out. NPR this week had a report on the Ganges River that there is so much plastic floating down the Ganges River that the whole Bay of Bengal is dead. And it isn't just on the other side of the world. You're in Michigan. What was a report about wolverines poison in our soil? And that's decades ago, right? And so that we don't feel too righteous, any of us, every time we get in the car, we send particulates up into the oxygen. Humanity does not care about creation or one another in the same way God does. But in spite of us, God is faithful. God keeps caring year after year. God's strategies. First, he decides, okay, we're going to choose a family. We're going to name them my family. They're going to be a blessing to the whole earth. And so there's old Abram and ancient Sarai, and God says you're going to have a baby. So, and it happens after she's 90, so that none of us will think that it was somehow natural. No, this is something spectacular. The Creator God who created in the beginning, he creates this child in Sarai. But then when the family goes along after a while, all of a sudden, they're not so interested in being a blessing to all the other nations. They want to be a nation themselves. They want their own standing army. So God decides, I need a different strategy. So God hires some prophets. You know, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Hosea. And they try to corral a nation and shape it to being faithful to God's value system. Doesn't really work. Then God sends Jesus, be God with us. And from the Herod story onward, the response to God's intervention is, we're not so sure we buy that, we'll resist it. In fact, Jesus gets rejected. We remember, right? Right? Jesus shows us that God has a suffering heart. That God suffers with us. And even absorbs our rejection of God. Maybe it's a little bit like that old fairy tale that Disney got a hold of, you know, Pinocchio. Geppetto, the wood carver, carves this puppet, and then the puppet somehow gets free and sings this song. I've got no strings to tie me down. No strings. That's humanity's response to God. We don't want strings. We're wanting free. To do it any way we choose. And God keeps loving us. So, what do you think God's up to? What's the point of creating a creation that's going to be this much work? Would you create something that's going to be this much work? So why do it? Now, there are a number of theories floating around there, answers as to what the purpose of it all is, and maybe you've already got your answer. And if you're happy with your answer, just you don't have to listen. One theory is that God was a bit lonely. And so God walks out into space and starts creating so that the three, because the three are already there, the three of them, the love that they share with each other, it sort of spills out, and creation is the result of that overflowing love that the Father, Son, and Spirit have for one another. And so they wanted to share that because it caused them delight. Love is to be shared. I mean, you can't just hold love into oneself. So it spills over. That's one thought. Another is, if you grew up Presbyterian and had to memorize the shorter catechism. Anybody have to memorize the shorter catechism? We have any here who did that. Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay. We got a couple. Shorter catechism says, question 1, what is the chief and of humanity. What's the purpose of humanity? Westminster Confession says, the purpose of humanity is to glorify God and enjoy God. That the purpose of this whole thing is delight, joy. Now, can you imagine inside of yourself that the reason you're here is that God takes joy in your presence? How many grandparents in the room? Okay. Remember when they were little? You know, about this size. But far enough along that they began to recognize your face. Remember what that was like? And you behold them, and you make a face. And what would they do? They could cry, but often, all of a sudden, it was like their eyes locked on to your eyes, and their face began to break into a smile. They might even giggle. The baby, pure delight. And as grandparent, was that not a joyful moment? Imagine that that's God looking into your face, wanting to be so locked into you and you into God that there is this joy that wells up inside that God delights in. That in God's heart of hearts there is joy that floods out. So that the psalmist will say that all of creation wants to celebrate and applaud God. The trees clap their hands. The stars sing a hallelujah chorus. And we think that we're getting together and it's sort of dreary. Brothers and sisters, the whole purpose of our being is to say, wow, hallelujah. All of creation giving God glory. Surely it should. God for that. It's been entrusted to us. So the trees can still applaud and the brooks sing their song.